Hi everyone, welcome to my overview for week 5. This is called user-based design because this is all about how what we imagine the users are going to want to do and what we want them to do changes how we should design the site. So last week you got to use some of the major tools for designing a site. The site map, which is like a skeleton, the knee bone is connected to the uh, thigh bone, and the thigh bone is connected to the hip bone. So the landing page is connected to the detail page, and the detail page is connected to the offer page, and the offer page is connected to the pay page, and the pay page is connected to the thank you page. You also looked at wireframes. If I get to a page and I'm looking for a particular thing, do I see that thing? Do I see the next thing I want? What other information might I want to know? We also looked at the site crawl, which is a spreadsheet, a list of all the pages on the site and what sections they're in, and maybe a little bit of information about them. Now you're going to use those tools to design the site differently than it was when you found it. You're also going to use the concept of the user story and the conversion path. Last week, people were pretty good about getting a crawl from somewhere or making it themselves. There were 3 things I noticed, which is that they weren't clearly showing column labels. The stuff on the top that says this is the URL, this is the page title. You may have found other column headings in software that you've downloaded, but the most important ones for a sitemap are the URL, the page title, and the section that that page is in. So when you're making a spreadsheet, you want your column headings to be bold so I see which ones they are, and you want to make sure you know what they're for. URLs should have URLs below them. Titles should have page titles below them. If you have titles and they don't look like the proper page titles of the pages, that the people who are making the pages aren't actually coding in proper page titles, which in the old HTML sites happened a lot. Now in CMSs like WordPress and Drupal and Joomla, the title that you see on the page matches the page title that is in the code of the page. That wasn't always the case. Anyway, if you've gone through Codecademy, you know the difference between the title tag in the heading area and the H1 tag, which holds the page title in the content area of the page. So know your column headings, format your column headings, make sure that the top line has a freeze the first row so I can not only scroll up and down and always see the top, but if I want to sort my spreadsheet, I don't lose the fact that that column was the column of page titles. And clean up the data. And Conan made a nice sitemap. I've modified his. I'm just going to show you what the modified version is. He's got his URLs, and yes, those are all URLs. He had section. His were all home, but I've popped up some sections because the employers page had 2 sub pages, and therefore I made a section called employers. His job seekers page had 4 sub pages, and so I decided to make seekers a section. And that's all pretty important because you might want to design and consider sections differently. Because, for example, job seekers are all for youth looking for jobs, but employers are for employers maybe looking for youth. So the information you want on those pages is different. Maybe even the design of the pages is different. Now, he had made something called page notes, and I filled this out more for the sake of this week's work to say what is the purpose of each page? What is it supposed to do? Because if I then go to that page and I'm about to do a wireframe of it or design it, this helps me know what I better have on that page. Like if I want to help employers or job seekers take the next step, I might want to have employers contact one person and job seekers contact another, or give them something else to do. So I might make 2 panels, one for if you're an employer do this, and if you're a job seeker do that. I might even have 2 contact pages. Corey's sitemap, it is very nice in the way that you can see the sections underneath the home page, the home level pages. So at least 4 of the home level pages have subpages on them. He's got these in green to easily show my eye where that level pages are. So it's a nice handy sitemap that he made. And wireframes. This is Todd's wireframe. I like it a lot. The thing that says our designs is a heading. I would definitely have left that in, maybe even made it a little larger. But this text here I would have made lorem ipsum, which is Latin that people just put in for filler. Because a wireframe you shouldn't ever want to read a wireframe. You should only want to scan it and get a sense of it. This is the Slogan. Slogan could go there because slogans don't change. I might have made that a little bit larger so it's easier to see. This testimonial here, I'd probably just have it say testimonial and maybe a little lorem ipsum. But outside of that, really, really great wireframe, nice use of for position only images. They're not really eye-catching, but they show you that there was an image that was supposed to be there. So those are the 3 tools, and here's how you're going to be successful this week. Buy the apps. Stop messing around with the trial accounts because I understand they only lasted for 7 days. But worse than that, you couldn't export them as images. Someone tried to save a Giphy file and export it to Google Drive, but the problem is I couldn't then open it because my Giphy account had canceled itself. So you need to export things as images, which means there's always 2 versions of something. The version that you can edit, which we call the native version, and the version that other people can see easily, which is the export, which in this case is an image. There's a new program called Creately that actually does both sitemaps and wireframes very well for $5. Giphy is $3.99, Lucidchart is $4.95. So your cheapest thing is to just go and get Creately and use it for a month for $5. If you've already fallen in love with either Lucidchart or Giphy, just continue, get the license and keep it for a month. It's not a big deal. I did make that new forum for people asking questions about the week's work. Nobody asked last week. This week, I specifically am inviting people to share their user stories for feedback. So theoretically, if I write a user story up and I also give the URL to the website I'm working on, then other people in the class can look at that website, look at my user story, and say, hey, maybe your user story should be something more like this. Up to you. Please use the Moodle submissions. What I mean by the Moodle submissions, these puppies. So if you tried to submit a crawl sheet, for example, and instead of submitting one, you just shared it with me, then you became some of the people who show up when I go to look at grades, like this. Corey did send me his crawl sheet, but I wouldn't know it here. Wouldn't know that Carlton had. So don't make me worry about you guys. You use the Moodle submission forms. If you're a contributor, you should now be, whenever you start to sit down to do something, make an asana task for it, call it, wireframing or developing a user story, whatever, and that's going to remind you that that's a step that you follow when you go and make websites. And use the time tracker so you can say, here's the amount of time I spent on this task. And I'm encouraging you to even share that information on a forum so other people in the class can get excited about that. Last week you defined the information architecture of your site as it was. Now you're going to define it as it should be based on knowing what your top users, meaning the people that your site is designed for, will want to experience when they get there and where you want them to go. So you need to know who is the site for, how do they get there, and what do they do next. Now, why does how do they get there matter? If I do a search for cheap airfares to Bermuda, and there's the regular old organic search listings, and then there's the ads on the right-hand side, and the ad might say, special offer, bald people travel for 50% off. Well, if I go click that bald people travel for 50% off, I should not get to the home page for that airline. I should get to a page with some pictures of some happy bald travelers who are having such a great time because they got 50% off. I can feel like that's me, that's what I wanted, and then I'll go and buy that plane ticket. So the first thing you're going to read is how to design user flow, how to design the flow that users are going to go through when they're on your site. Now this is a somewhat long reading, it's 11 pages, but it uses all the words you need to know, and so I know you're going to take the time to really try to understand it. And then we've got this movie, which has a couple of web developers talking about how they get together and come up with user stories. And I don't. Hey
everybody, it's Chris and Jose.
I don't want you to start at the beginning because they take a long time getting going. I want you to move up to 4.5 minutes.
How does Joe find out about all these? He first came first time as a guest. Somebody else brought him. Okay.
Yeah, so they just said Joe's a guest to the website. Somebody else brought them. What are they going to try to get Joe to do? And you can hear them talk that through. That's the kind of thinking that we want you to do when you're coming up with your user story. Your story about who is the person, what do they want, And what are they gonna do if they get that? So I'm a bald person looking to travel to Bermuda. I want to find a cheap airfare, and that way I can actually afford to go. Okay, another thing we're going to talk about is the conversion path, which I've kind of just been hinting at. Here I'm talking about where I came from and where I ended up. But conversion path also includes the steps I go through. I'm just traveling around in searches or something, and I have a ad that says bald people travel for less. And I click on that ad, and then I end up on a landing page. Now the landing page has a form, and I might click on that form to get a quote, or I might even click on the form to reserve a thing. And I do go and I reserve it, and then I might have a place to pay, and then I might have a place to say thank you. And all of those steps matter. Even the thank you page matters, because maybe I know some other bald people, and maybe my thank you page includes a referral where I can get an extra pina colada when I get there if I can refer another bald person. Now you're going to say, I don't know what kind of conversion path. I've got this page on flying squirrels. What's the conversion path? Well, so the person does a search for flying squirrels. They find their way to your page on flying squirrels. It's got a bunch of information on flying squirrels. Well, what if there was an overview page with a very, very nice picture of the flying squirrel and maybe a video? And then there was a link to get more detailed information. So the person who clicks for that more detailed information, that's somebody who really wants to know more. They read the more detailed information. Now we know they really care. What do we want from them? Do we want them to donate to the Flying Squirrel Society? Do we want them to consider rescuing a hurt flying squirrel and carrying it for themselves? Probably we don't want them to do that. But we made the site for some reason. Maybe we want them to sign up to make a web page about their favorite weird animal. So think about the purpose of the site, what it wants users to do, and then think about how you can maybe create some new pages that aren't even there yet to give people stages and steps towards the thing you want them to do. Okay, so landing pages. That's a page that you land on. Most beginning web developers assume that the only page I ever land people on is the home page. So all the other pages are just, boring content-filled pages. But if my site is about more than one thing, if it's about flying squirrels and pink elephants, then somebody might do a search for pink elephants and land on my pink elephant page. So my pink elephant page also has to be designed to be the first thing people see. And particularly if you have an ad that links to your page or a search that links to your page, you want them to see that. I mean, if we were making a page for people who want websites and we think that we say different things to business owners than we say to government officials or nonprofits, we might have a landing page for each of those. And then our homepage might have buckets, meaning business owner, click here, nonprofit, click here, government, click here. And then when they get to the landing page for business owners, they don't see anything about the government officials or the organizations, so they see it's much more about them. So wireframes used to be used to describe what you see. Now you're going to use them to describe what you want to see. You're going to think about what should go where. Now this here is a very, very complex wireframe. I would only see this on a home page, and even then I don't expect you guys to get this fancy. But have some fun. Just make sure that the things that you do make some kind of sense. Don't just go crazy. I want to look for evidence of your thinking. And I may email you back and ask you about your thinking. So be forewarned. Try to make sense. So the objectives for this week are to figure out what your site is supposed to do for whom. If you are a contributor, you get to interview your client and talk to them a little bit more. Otherwise, I've created something for all of the users who are doing B2B. Then you're going to think about what should be on the main menu, what sections in the website are needed, and that's how you change the sitemap. When you think about new pages, you have to redo your web crawl, this one, right? You might add some more pages in there. You might add a section, and you're going to put those page purposes in so we know why did you want that page? What should a page actually do that you're imagining should be there? And then you want to ask, are you going to do a wireframe for your home page, or are you going to make a landing page and make a wireframe for that? Tools is your content list, which is your Google Sheet. You might want to actually work on your existing web crawl. Make a copy of it, though. Don't destroy the original. You might want to go back to it. Sitemap, you can use Lucidchart if you already like it, or you can use Creately. And same thing with the wireframe. Creately can do both of these, but if you've already started working with Glyphy, you can continue with that. Seth Godin, author of The Big Red Fez, was one of my inspirations when I made Game Face Web Design. And I talk about these are the 6 things that matter when you're making a website. It's got to be able to be found. It's got to look sexy. It's got to be sticky. It's got to be speedy. It's got to load fast. It's got to be smart so I don't get lost. And it's got to be spot on. And spot on is about whatever it is that that person is looking for, they should be able to find it and find it fast. And there's why I write, got banana. And Seth Godin says, monkeys want to know one thing, where's the banana? If the banana isn't easy to see and easy to get, the monkey is as good as gone. So how are you going to show people the banana that they're looking for on the page that they land on from wherever it is they've come to? And he makes the point that if you've got a whole fruit bowl on your home page and they're looking for a banana, they're not going to be as happy. So try not to send them to the home page. Try to send them to the banana page. This is all, of course, metaphor for whatever it is your page is about. I mean, even if I was thinking about, I want to get a website for my business. Maybe the best thing on the home page is not an image of a website. Maybe it's an image of my ideal user looking at the website and clicking on it, because then maybe me as a business owner identifies with getting the thing I wanted, which is not the website but the user clicking. When you go and make a new wireframe or a new sitemap, you want to share it with your clients and get feedback from them. My favorite thing to do is to share a Google Drive folder with them. But this act of saying, look, here's the wireframe I'm thinking about, what's your thoughts, having a conversation with them and listening to what they are interested in, helping them understand things that they don't understand, that makes them love you more and more and more. You know, the free websites like Wix and Squarespace don't have anybody to ask you those questions. They're just, there's the tool and you get to play with it. So you're adding a lot of value. Try to find opportunities to share what you're making with your clients at various steps along the way. Get their feedback and make changes. Something fancy that we're doing for our submission this time. We have 5 pieces. The content list, which you've made like before, but we're adding that extra column for what is the page purpose. This was not in that thing you made before. We're adding the user story, which again was just that little fancy sentence that we had up before. I am a this looking for that, and I came from here, blah, blah, blah. Your conversion path is just a series of steps. You know, first they clicked on the ad, then they got to the landing page, then they decided they wanted to sign up for the PDF, so they entered their contact information, then they downloaded the PDF, and then they had a thank you page and an opportunity to subscribe to our newsletter. You create a new sitemap based on all this thinking, and then you create or revise your wireframe based on all of that work. Now, if you are a user doing Beyond the Box, which is now Greenfield Digital, I wrote all this stuff out. I didn't write exactly what you want, like there isn't a user story in here, but you should be able to create a user story based on what you see here. This is going to make things very easy for you. But if you're a contributor, you're going to go and have a conversation with your client, or if it's not possible because they just don't have time, you're going to have to work from your past conversations and use your imagination. But all of you are doing exactly the same things, maybe in slightly different order, but you're doing the same things. The fancy thing is how you're submitting them. Instead of making this 5 or 6 different submissions, which is hard to track, I've given you a Google Doc template. And so I'm asking you to make a copy of this. So you go File, make a copy. Instead of domain name, you're going to write the domain name of your site. So first you got your content list. Well, you're not going to use this content list. You're going to make your own content list. So you're going to change that URL and make it go to your URL. You don't need to use this image if that URL works. But if you feel fancy and you want to just show me a little screenshot of the image, that's lovely. You're going to write your user story here. This is the one that after you've shared it with your partner and maybe with other people in the class have gotten it nice and good. You're going to put your conversion path here. If you make your things red, that's wonderful. you're going to get your new sitemap, and either you're going to make this page like 2 or 3 pages by making really big, long, full-size sitemaps and pasting them here, which you could do, or you can just make a screenshot of your sitemap, make a small image of it, and then link it. So either a big image or a little image linked to a big image. If I click this, there's going to be a link tool, and I could key in the URL to whatever my big image was. Plus I might also highlight it and put the link there. So just make it very clear and obvious to me that I can go and find your sitemap. And then similarly with the wireframe, you could make a little image of your wireframe and link to the big one, or you could put the big one here. But if you put the big one here, really make it large enough that I can read it, because this 8.5 by 11 page that we're looking at can only show me so much. I might not be able to read it or appreciate it in this form as much as I would if I could have a link that goes there. And again, where I'm going to end up going should not be Glyphy or Lucidchart. It should be a PNG image or a GIF or JPEG image. Because if I don't have Lucidchart, I may not be able to deal with looking at the thing that you've made. Now it's possible that Lucidchart says, hey, if you give me this link, anybody can click there and go there. That's fine, you can use it in that case. Alright, hopefully that's everything that you need to know, and I can go and edit this and go to sleep. Good luck this week, and next week we're going to start to have real fun.